So my name is Darren Gertis. I'm a professor who's been tracking what's been going on in Ukraine since about the beginning of the war, and I do daily updates. So the question that I'm going to ask here is, did Zelensky threaten Russia with nuclear weapons? And it looks like he did. When you look at what's going on in the press, and I talked about this just a few days ago, this was RT. The Kremlin accuses Zelensky of trying to start a world war, and how he's demanding that NATO carry out preventative strikes, and they're interpreting this as nuclear strikes. What else should NATO do? Eliminate the possibility of Russia using nuclear weapons? Zelensky said during an online conference. I once again appeal to the international community, as it was before February 24th, preemptive strikes so that Russia, will know what will happen to them if they use it. One, he wasn't using the word nuclear, but strikes could also be misinterpreted. So I asked a friend of mine, his name is Dan Terlecki. He's an American lawyer who's of Ukrainian descent, speaks Ukrainian, and I just asked him, hey, look, can you watch this video clip and tell me what's actually being said? And Dan's the host of Ukraine Watch, so he's already plugged into this as well. You can find Ukraine Watch easily. Just Google Ukraine Watch podcast, and he's the first one that'll pop up. Okay, so let's go to my question. So, Dan, you speak Ukrainian. I do not speak Ukrainian. I'm not Ukrainian at all. And so I'm relying on you. When Zelensky spoke to the Sydney based Lowry Institute, this was big news. They said he was saying that the NATO must engage in preventative strikes, and it could be interpreted, it appears, as preventative action. Tell me from the language, could it be interpreted both ways, or is it one or the other? Did the interpreter get it wrong, or what's going on? I've even seen one article where it said instead of strikes, kicks could be interpreted that way. So thank you for, and I'll just hear what you have to say. Now, before Dan answers, I want you to actually see the footage of what Zelensky said. So here it is.
Як це було до 24-го? Превентивні удари, щоб вони знали, що з ними буде, якщо вони застосують, а не навпаки. Чекати ядерних ударів Росію, щоб потім сказати, ах, ти так, ну ось тримай від нас.
Darren, thanks for the question. I'm going to translate this phrase for you, but before I do, I want to give some much needed context to this topic. This war is not about who gets to control Donbass or Crimea. If that were the case, this thing would have been over back in 2014. The fact is, Russia invaded Ukraine, a sovereign country, for no reason. The whole time they've been doing this, they've been calling their victims terrorists and fascists. Take what happened in Zaporizhia, for example. This is a province in eastern Ukraine that only a few days ago, the Russians held a sham referendum there, and they claimed that 93% of the citizens of Zaporizhia voted to be part of Russia. And then days later, they bombed in the middle of the night, 2 a.m. while people are sleeping, a civilian target, an apartment building, and they killed a bunch of people. The same people that they claim wanted to be with Russia, that speak Russian, that they're claiming they want to protect. I think the takeaway here is that the Russian regime are liars, and they're the type of liars that are going to piss on you and tell you it's raining. All right, let's talk about what Zelensky said, or better yet, what he didn't say. Because anybody that's trying to convince you that Zelensky or the Ukrainian government are advocating for the West to strike, attack Russia with nuclear weapons are either lying to you or they don't know what they're talking about. Look, as pro-Ukrainian as I am, and I am very pro-Ukrainian, if you gave me the false choice of whether I would be willing to risk nuclear war over 2 provinces in eastern Ukraine, I would unequivocally say no. But like I said before, this is not what this war is about, and this is not what this conflict is about. It's about the Russian government wanting to subjugate people, wanting to impose its will on the rest of the world without regard for the human cost of it. The Russians won't stop on their own, and any peace deal with them is meaningless. Zelensky did not say we should make a preventative nuclear strike against Russia. That's just stupid. He didn't say preventивный ядерный удар. Ядерный, by the way, means nuclear. Udar, well, it means a lot of things. It means strike, punch, kick, attack, action.
Превентивні удари.
It depends on the context. Now, if you remember not too long ago, a few months ago, Lavrov was talking about Jewish Nazis or Jewish Nazi supporters, and then Putin apologized to Israel. Or just recently, President Biden was talking about Armageddon, nuclear Armageddon, and his team had to clarify that he's not basing his comments on any new information. Well, Zelensky's team clarified this as well. He meant sanctions, economic sanctions. Really, what he's saying is that we shouldn't just let Russia go nuclear without any preventative sanctions whatsoever, without any action at all. This really is a nothing burger. And it's the wrong question because as I'm recording this on October 10th, this morning we've got reports that Vladimir Putin has been launching missiles and rockets on civilian targets all over Ukraine, and many people are dead. The Associated Press is reporting this, and Putin has even admitted as much. What they want, what Russia wants, is to eliminate Ukraine and everything Ukrainian. That's what this is about. And they're not going to stop there. And this retaliatory, according to Putin, this retaliatory strike on Ukraine on civilian targets was over the Ukrainians bombing the Kerch Bridge, which was a bridge that the Russians built illegally to connect Russia to Crimea so that they can supply their army and bomb Ukraine. It's ridiculous. The depravity and the mendacity of the Russian regime is boundless. And what we should really be talking about are the words and actions of Vladimir Putin and what he's been doing to the world.
Now, I'm not alone in this. Politico came out the other day and said that the interpreter corrected himself. He said preventative strikes. He could have called it, he corrected himself and said preventative action. I saw somewhere else where they said kicks, and that's something that Dan just said as well. So it could be interpreted a number of different ways, but it wasn't a first nuclear strike. So it's been a little overblown in the media, but you're generally not hearing that. Okay, so that's it. So you have to decide for yourself. Did he actually say that? Or are we believing the narrative, and particularly a narrative that Russia wants, with RT blowing this up? And the major news sources should have done a better job. Kudos to Politico for pointing that out. And thank you for your time. And I'll be back tomorrow.